Hello, it's Ronnie Yoga Devi, and I'm coming to you from my home in Leamington, Ontario. And today I have something to share that I got a little upset about. I was on a group communicating with people who were gathered there to learn Hindi, and there was a Muslim man who was participating in the conversation, and his name was Abdul. And someone had the audacity to say something to him that I just thought was just showing that she lacked an understanding of India for sure. And she made some reference to he must be Muslim, so sort of what did he know about India kind of thing. And I could not contain myself, but I from responding, and I did so in the most professional possible way. I just couldn't believe that she didn't know that there were Muslims as well as Hindus, as well as Christians, as well as Zoroastrians and multiple other religions existing in India. I just was... You know, my mom taught me something. If you can't say anything nice, it's best that you don't say anything at all and wait until you've got something nice to say. I was really shocked by that. I really was. And I think that it's really important in a world that has gotten very small because of social media to be cognizant of the fact that you yourself, sitting in your country, have very little knowledge of countries on the other side of the world from you. So even if somebody's name is Abdul, it doesn't mean that he lives in the Middle East. If someone's name seems like an African name, it doesn't mean that they live in Africa. And I'm not going to give you a bunch of examples of African names, because although I know lots of African names, they're from very specific countries, and won't be helpful to the point that I am trying to make. Well, one of the things that I got out in talking about Muslims and their importance, not only in England, and not only in India, but in England, was this book that I recommend that anybody who wants to know a little bit more about the connection between England and India should read. And it's called Victoria and Abdul, and it is the story about Queen Victoria's closest confidant, who was Abdul Karim, and it was written by Shribani Basu, and this is the cover of that book. I'm gonna change, well, it's not very clear because I've set my camera to really be clear on my face right now, but I think you get the idea. This is the Queen, and this is Abdul Karim. There are some, in this book, there are some actual photographs of him, which I'll show you very briefly. They're going to be, some are actual portraits. This is a portrait of Abdul Karim. And this was done by Rudolf Svoboda. And this was in the Royal Collection, is still in the Royal Collection of Queen Elizabeth II. And Queen Victoria, Abdul Karim, the entire household, and Abdul Karim. No, this is not Abdul Karim. Sorry, these are two of Queen Victoria's attendants. This, I believe, is Abdul Karim. Oh, I'm trying to get it to work. What I've done with it. Can't get him clear. There, he's clear. And what else? He was referred to as the Munshi by people in the family, like who lived in the family, and as well as staff. So not just the family, but family and staff of the household. And so this is next one. This is the first ones on one side are from Balmoral that I'll show you first. That's the Munshi in Balmoral, and below this was the Munshi's house in Balmoral, which would accommodate him, his wife, his father when they came to visit, and anybody who was going to come and stay. This room that you're seeing the focus on right now, this was a room that Queen Victoria created because Queen Victoria never went to India. She lived she gained her understanding of India, I should say, vicariously through Abdul Karim. So she never got a chance to go to India. I don't think she was healthy enough to travel that far. And then this was the Munshi's home elsewhere. This one is in Osborne, and this one is Dubar Hall, which is also in Osborne. And I think those are the most significant pictures because the rest of them are, pretty standard. Wait, I'll show you two more. Three more. Abdul Karim. And this is Abdul Karim going for a ride, and I believe he's on horseback there. He was trained as a horseman as well. This was in Scotland where he went riding. So everywhere the Queen went, he went. That's an important thing. I think these are the next most important photos. Abdul Karim was the person who took care of Queen Victoria's letters. So every day she wrote letters, and he basically kept them and kept them safe. Delivered the letters to people who needed to get them, and kept the ones that she had received from others, so that there was an accounting of everything, and he was responsible for that, which is a big duty, very big duty. And a lot of the household was jealous that he had that duty. So I'm going to show you next these two pictures. A picture of Abdul Karim at his desk with a photo of Queen Victoria on it, and then below Queen Victoria with two of her Indian attendants. Yes, that's... Yes. Oh. I'll show you that, and then I'm going to correct something else. Abdul Karim at his writing desk, and the queen with her Indian attendants. I'm not going to get a real clear picture unless... There we go. We got it nice and clear now. And I'm going to go back to this photograph because I believe that I showed you this one and gave incorrect information about it. If I didn't, well then I'm still giving you the right information. Abdul Karim, Queen Victoria. And then down here is one of the attendants with Abdul Karim. I think I said it was just attendants, but no. Abdul Karim, I believe this was Abdul Karim. And the other one was Muhammad Buksh, B-U-K-S-H, Buksh. Actually, no. Sorry, Abdul Karim was this one. He was the taller, thinner guy. And then this guy was Muhammad Buksh, who was also a member of the staff of Queen Victoria. And the household and Abdul Karim again below. I think I showed the picture of Durbar Hall and all of that. And the picture there and the riding in Scotland. I believe I've shown that one as well. Well, I'm not sure how well I can get it to show up. I've set the camera to kind of slightly blur out the background so it would focus a little bit more on me, and that wasn't a good choice to make with a video where I was intending to show some pictures. But yes, she really appreciated India and was never really able to get there. So she had a room made, which was her little India, and it's kind of cool, kind of sweet actually. This is the grave of the Munshi in Agra, and there is the mausoleum in Agra. So anyhow, it's a really nice book. I had a good time reading it. It took me a while to read it. It basically goes through a whole bunch of history. And in case you didn't know what a munshi is, munshi means secretary of language. Sorry, secretary or language teacher, and it's a South Asian term. Munshi basically means teacher, but in this case, he was her secretary and her language teacher. She was teaching him. I mean, he was teaching her Hindustani, which she thought everybody spoke. Actually, she was no. Sorry, correct that. Zip. She was not being taught Hindustani or Hindu. She was being taught Urdu, which is fine. It's similar to having learned Hindustani in a way, but Urdu is written a little bit different from Hindustani and different from Hindu. So, Hindustani might have been a better language to teach the queen, even though she was never going there. There are, inside of this book, there are examples of her writing in Urdu, I believe. I don't know where they are. But anyhow, there is somewhere in here some examples of her writing. But anyhow, don't see it right now. And I don't want to keep this excessively long just so I can show you something that you could probably Google. But anyhow. What is kind of interesting, I thought, was this one paragraph. The conversations with Karim kept the Queen up to date on India. Karim would often voice his concern that Muslims, being a minority, could be marginalized in India. Every report of a religious riot now convinced her that the Hindus were often the antagonists, hearing as she did the story from Karim. She always wrote immediately to the Viceroy about her worries. Distressed at terrible religious riots at Bombay, believed that Hindus, and the Queen spelled Hindus Hindoos, are generally the aggressors. Can not some arrangement be made by which festival were not at the same time? Each section agreed not to interfere with in each other's devotion. Can not Moharum be altered? I don't know what that means. A few days later, she wrote again. Can no sensible and reasonable Hindus of some influence and standing be spoken to as the possibilities and necessity of putting a stop to this anti-cow killing practice, which naturally enrages the Mohammedans? If leading and enlightened men upon both sides cannot be spoken to, and the danger of stirring up such great strife, which might lead to very serious complications, it would be a great thing. And what I got from reading this book was that the Queen of England was heavily influenced to believe that India was all about the Muslim faith and the Urdu language, and she really never had any understanding of the Hindu faith and the language of Hindi. She never had that understanding because she was taught only Urdu and only this particular side. And I think that it's an example for all of us to really be aware that when we speak about our own country, there's always more than one group of people. In Canada, there are two major languages spoken, but a lot of other languages as well. The main languages of Canada are French and Canadian. English, Canadian English, which is not the same as American English because it's closer to the British English. We spell things very differently in Canada than they do in the United States. Like, for example, color, they spell in the United States C-O-L-O-R, and in Canada we spell it C-O-L-O-U-R, like they do in Britain. So there's some similarities with how we use the English language in Canada, but we also have developed our own language, our own how do you call it in language when you've got slang. Slang is the word I'm looking for. It's late at night. My brain is going. So anyhow, slang in every language is difficult to translate into another language. So if somebody's trying to learn a language, don't give them the slang, give them the real language. And it's gotten to the point in a lot of our languages that people are using slang without even realizing that it's slang because they're not getting a good enough education in the English language. And that may be taking place in other languages as well. So make sure you get a good grounding in your own language, because if you get a good grounding in your own language, then if you go somewhere else, like say you went to Paris, you could be able to translate the French better because your English word will more easily match up with a French word or saying. And it's just easier to learn a language if your own grounding in your own language is really good. And this is one of the reasons that sometimes Americans have problems in traveling, because there's a little bit more slang that's used in certain parts of the States. And, well, we all have accents. Wherever we're from, we all have an accent. I don't hear my accent, but somebody else is going to hear it, even if they're from the other side of Canada. And somebody from England is going to hear that accent, and somebody from Africa is going to hear that accent. But I don't hear it because it's my voice. This is the norm for me. This is the norm. Anyway, I'm going to put the book away. Anyhow, I just really, really want to put that out there, that it's really important that if you're very knowledgeable about a country and its languages and all that sort of stuff, go ahead and comment online. But if you don't, it's not a good idea to make mistakes and be aggressive about it. If you are going to make a mistake, it's much better for you to be inquisitive in your comments, as if you're actually looking for information and looking to learn. Because if you're just going to come across as aggressive and not willing to learn, you actually come across as being kind of ignorant and troll-like on the internet. So it's really important to really watch how you communicate online. And another thing that I notice that some people do that they don't even realize is rude on the internet is typing in all caps. That on the internet is considered to be yelling, to be aggressive. So if you're doing that, stop, please. Because people who you're communicating with will think you're aggressive. And almost like yelling. So I guess that's all for now. Have yourselves a wonderful evening. Rani Yoga Devi signing off. Namaste.